As you know, I'm Matt with MovieWeb. I really appreciate taking this time to sort of discuss the show. It's very cool that, I mean, you don't usually get a show with a theatrical release and chunks that actually, does well comparatively. So congrats on the success of this over time.
Thank you. That's actually very true. I think even in my youth, I've been very aware of theatrical releases for special episodes or sometimes Christmas specials that they'll like release in this theatrical run, but none, even big shows. Like I'm primarily thinking of Doctor Who, or I think sometimes what was another big show that had like a theatrical release or run of a few episodes, but none of them have even
Yeah,
come close to making the numbers that The Chosen has with Fathom Events.
yeah. Yeah, it's great how it's exploded. I imagine it's a difficult task sort of creating th- these characters. It's ironic because they have such massive importance religiously and historically, but we honestly don't know much about them. So I guess there's a lot of gaps to sort of fill in. How do you go about doing that beyond what's just on the page? And I guess I'll start with Giovanni there.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky because we have writers that write so specifically for each character, I would say. Like each character, even by reading through it in the very beginning, you knew there was a sense of unique personalities with each one that had so many relatable qualities to any human reading it. You know, seeing the feistiness of Simon or the anxiety with what Andrew goes through, or the past that Mary goes through and trying to get out of that. So they're all human qualities that we can all kind of relate to. And I know growing up, I've never seen that in like a Christian film before, I would say. But it's really cool to see like how many people across the world, all from different beliefs and different walks of life, have related to it and have seen themselves in the characters. And it's so great to see. I mean, we get messages every day from people from Brazil, Italy, the Philippines, obviously the United States, saying, I saw myself in Judas, I saw myself in Thaddeus, I saw myself in Little James, and it's really humbling to kind of see that and feel that you're making a difference.
Is it kind of similar for you, Luke? Were you just confident from the beginning that this character is sort of fleshed out, or how do you fill in the gaps to make him Judas Iscariot this kind of complete picture?
Oh, yeah, honestly, again, kind of piggybacking off of what G said, the the writers Tyler Thompson and Ryan Swanson, as well as the creator Dallas Jenkins, put together these very really cool scripts that delved into more character aspects than were ever explored in historical or biblical context, which is what you'd want from a TV show. You'd want them to take creative licenses with these characters and expand things that you wouldn't have known before. Because if you stick to the letter in any historical context, you'll lose that emotional pull that you'd want from a dramatic telling or a show that you want to engage you, which the show does very well. Like you said, there's so many character aspects that are fantastically relatable. You said Mary Magdalene's like her struggle with substance abuse and her past mental health issues, the demonic possessions as would be considered. The Who else? Little James. Little James is struggling with his disabilities, which a lot of people have spoken out about in great lengths, being able to be seen. I personally like Simon Z's backflips. I think that's a really interesting and cool character descriptive that I always look forward to seeing. Like I would never guess like the man can tumble. But it's if there's anything missing, not to completely plagiarize Giovanni's entire answer, but honestly, I like to also, uh,
Please.
but I'd like to add, I think we've also got an amazingly talented cast who color and specify these characters in the little moments. One of my favorite performances, like bar none, who constantly comes and like shines with so much detail is our caseman, our castmate Austin Reelman, who he gives Nathaniel so much personality, and he makes this disciple who would easily be lost in the background, who's just like a nameplate to like list out the 12, into such defining character. And he does it all with his performance. Like anybody else given his character could have done something, but he makes it so unique and a standout performance. So I honestly, I think the cast in their professionalism and their talent also really make these characters so relatable, and so it's so fun to watch them.
Yeah, yeah. You both sort of mentioned the resonance to people today. Obviously, it's the story of the Gospels, but what what are these universal or specific themes and traits that you think are connecting with people, either with your characters specifically or just from the show in general? I guess Giovanni again.
Yeah, I just think, kind of going off of what I said before, it's like they're seeing themselves in these characters. They're not like cookie cutter characters that are just like, oh, they're apostles, right? And they're all kind of bunched up in this same group. It very easily could have been that way. But like Luke was saying too, like Ryan, Tyler, and Dallas do an incredible job by making each of them their own unique personality. You get like that, like even like going off of kind of what Luke said. Like I love Austin's kind of like very deadpan, subtle humor. It's so beautiful to watch, and Jordan has brought so much to little James's character as well. And that's been an advocate for people to step up into their power and say, hey, this is a big insecurity that I've had in my life, and you're allowing me to step forth and talk about those things. And even, Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus so beautifully, this he's allowing a humanity aspect of it, right? You're seeing Jesus being able to dance with friends at a wedding and crack jokes with his buddies, and have those serious heart to heart moments with the people that he loves. And I think that's what people are yearning for, especially when I watch any TV show or film. I want to be impacted in an emotional way, and I want to try to see myself in those characters as well. And I want to feel seen. And I think what The Chosen has been able to do is they're allowing people to feel seen, despite where they came from, how they grew up, what their beliefs are. And I think the most important message of The Chosen, too, is that we're not so different from each other. And that love and connection really is the key here. It doesn't matter how different we are, we can still love each other. We can still have that connection.
Mm.
And we're seeing that more and more each season, too.
Yeah, and without whitewashing the religious component completely, it does uh focus on friendship and humans and love and family and joy and normal suffering. One of my favorite uh depictions of the sort of Christ narrative is Last Temptation of Christ because of that sort of humanity. But it's difficult. There are people who criticize, if it doesn't handle such a sacred property, such a sacred sort of 2 millennia-year-old religion, if it doesn't handle it in the right way, it could upset people. What have you gotten any feedback from people religiously about the show? Not negative, but I'm curious, just the whole spectrum. What has the response been, especially from the religious community, in your mind? I guess, Luke.
Uh, Mostly overwhelmingly positive. I think Dallas put it pretty best, where he said we just uh no, we take in the good information and we don't focus on those who uh have the more over the top reactions, either online or because you can tell when someone's mostly preaching or trying to uplift themselves through it, like extremist verbiage or words or uses, or that they're trying to use biblical or religious texts to their benefit, and people who are actually enjoying the show from a religious aspect as well. I think it's crazy because I'm also like, it's The Last Temptations of Christ is that's a Scorsese film. That's like Martin Scorsese, and he's a Catholic. He's played with themes of faith in many of his films. One of my favorite was Silence. I watched that with my dad, and we were just
Wow.
dumbstruck
Powerful.
by how heartbreaking and powerful and human it was. It wasn't uh, a film to like just preach, but it had the identity of faith with it that it carried through this human story of tribulation and cultural differences and hardship. It he's a fantastic director, so it always astounds me when people criticize his films. But that is the religious community. That being said, I think from my understanding, it's been more overwhelmingly positive. People have been very appreciative of a more humanistic Jesus take in their lives, and I think they just appreciate that there is a story being told about their faith and their following that they they can connect to and enjoy in every aspect.
Mm. Anything to add, Giovanni, just about how sort of delicate the material can be and what the reactions have been?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely delicate in the sense that we're playing real people. So it's like a sense of responsibility to make sure you're doing them justice as well, and that's always a pressure. But what's cool about that is that we've gotten to know each other very well over the last 5 years, and it's crazy to even think it's been that long. Um, so there's a sense of safety on set when it comes to taking chances and knowing what each other needs, especially if it's a high emotional scene or it's a day that we know like, hey, we have to be super focused because we are telling a story, especially that is in scripture that a lot of people care about. And we're not that's not new to us. Like, we understand how important these stories are to so many people around the world. But like Luke said, I think the consensus has been, especially, I mean, at least from what I've talked to people and what I've seen message wise, the consensus has been overwhelmingly positive for the most part. And I think it's opening their eyes in a sense of, hey, like, I never even pictured Jesus kind of being like that. And what's cool too about it too is, like, kind of like I was touching base on it earlier, is it is bringing different walks of life together. Not only Christians, but like we have atheists that watch our show as well, and being like, wow, I never even thought about it that way. I never even thought of Jesus having like a personality that would like laugh and communicate with his friends, kind of like that. I always thought of him as like this stoic figure in history that you really couldn't touch or relate to. So yeah, I think it's been overwhelmingly positive to do that and just make it as human and as real and as the deepest connection as we possibly can for people.
Yeah, and I mean, across every character, all of these names we might know but not have ever conceived of in this way, especially Judas Iscariot, Luke, really bringing a humanity to him. I've always thought he was kind of like the most theologically important or underrated character, because without him, there is no sort of crucifixion, and how betrayal can be such an important instrument of God is fascinating to me. How do you play this character while knowing what's going to happen? Unless, I mean, I doubt you're going to change it, but how do you play that knowing what's going to happen in the future? How do you block that out, or how does it inform your performance?
As I mean, at first, I'd like to agree with you. I feel like this character is very uh kind of overlooked sometimes, just kind of treated in the biblical sense as simply as the betrayer and kind of passed over, when in truth, I think in a lot of other forms, usually in secular media, the takes on him are realizing how weirdly complex he is, and how there's so much more to his story that has probably been erased or completely ignored for the sake of looking at his deeds in hindsight and completely labeling him purely as traitor. It's it's very interesting, and I love that weight in a character, But I simply, whenever I try to come to him, I simply just focus on the now, the what the character has right now, and the simplicity of his emotions and the feelings that he has, surrounded by the people that he's joined in this journey of following Jesus. Uh, the writing has been very helpful in that, where they just keep it very focused on what his concerns are right now. There's not a lot of play forward other than like the few hints and heres and the slow build to his inevitable betrayal. But other than that, I just like to focus on what is right now, the information that I know about him right now, and how that can affect his decisions uh, purely from an instinctual sense, like past a need, like an idea or like a need of greed or betrayal. Like, how does he feel about the people around him, and how does that define his actions now? Because that's what most people do. They don't have this extended like idea of evil. It creeps up and it surprises, mostly from an internal need for something else.
Yeah, I imagine presentness and mindfulness of the present moment is very important to everyone there. Um, uh, Giovanni, what do you love about Thaddeus, or what do you like about playing? I guess Judas Thaddeus. There's a lot of
The other
conflicting
Judas,
ideas. Yeah.
Got two Judases right here. You got
the
two
good
Judas.
Judas.
No, 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 no. Don't put it that
Hey,
way.
Jude, don't make it bad. Be the good disciple. Don't betray Jesus.
I love that cover.
A scene to where I'm actually the one that betrays in the end. So Luke
Yes.
is he's off he's off the hook there.
Thank you.
But
I,
I felt very connected to Thaddeus, and you know, me and Jordan Walker Ross, who plays Little James, we talk about this quite a bit because there's not really much on Thaddeus, who's also known as Saint Jude, and Little James in the Bible in Scripture. So you know, at first it was challenging, but it's also kind of a blessing in disguise because it gives us more of free range to kind of create this character, because it's not kind of set in stone what his personality was like. So I knew very, very quickly from the writing in season one that he was someone who was more of a peacemaker. He really wanted kind of everybody to be on the same page, and just, you know, is trying to trust the process the best he can. And he wears his heart on his sleeve. So I honestly try to bring as much as myself as I possibly can to that. And I love him because he's like the best friend I wish I had growing up, in a sense. I was very shy growing up, didn't really have a ton of confidence, especially in my middle school, high school days. Um, and just to see him as someone who goes up to his friends when they don't feel seen, and is basically going up to them saying, I see you, and you are welcomed. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, you are welcomed and you belong here. Um, I feel it's a very honorable thing for him to do, and I'm grateful I get to try to portray him the best way I possibly can, which is that friend, you know, giving a helping hand to the people that he loves and cares around him.
which is very interesting because I think you've kind of become that friend in real life to many people, including me. So it's kind of beautiful how art imitates life there, huh, buddy?
Oh man, well, it makes it easy when you got a good friend like you, brother.
Yeah, yeah.
This guy, get a load of him. Can't get enough.
You can serenade him anytime.
That's what we do. He comes in with the hugs. I come in with the vocals.
Ooh.
We're a
Um,
dynamic duo.
so having all this experience sort of living in the gospel narrative, I'm curious what your thoughts are on, I guess, one of the biggest adaptations of it of all time, The Passion of the Christ, and then Mel Gibson is working on a resurrection sequel. We have Easter next week. It's been on my thoughts a lot. What are your thoughts on the first film, Passion of the Christ, and what would you want to see? And I guess Resurrection was the working title. I guess, Luke.
He's been working on that one for a while, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's had 3 different drafts. There's a very wild one where a lot of it takes place in hell, during three
Yeah.
days. So yeah, I'm not sure what
Yeah,
direction it's gonna go.
Uh, purely personally, just my opinion, I wasn't a huge fan of Passion, but that was just me. I was kind of showed it as a kid around like a group of bunch of other Sunday school church kids. It was technically the first rated R movie I'd ever seen, and I kind of came out of it like other than the brutality and the hurt, the pain that I noticed, I didn't really get much out of it past that. It was really cool that the entire cast was speaking, I believe, Aramaic, the ancient language used at the time, which was an amazing, cool what was a commitment to make cinematically. But past that, I felt like it missed a lot of what would be the more strong buildup of the story, which is kind of what I would have more appreciated to have seen. Weirdly enough, I'm a bit more of a fan of Jesus of Nazareth, which is a slog, but I'm a kid who was raised on the extended editions of Lord of the Rings, so 4 hours, 6 hours, that ain't nothing to me.
Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, Passion of the Christ is kind of the antithesis of what The Chosen does. They both have very different functions, in my opinion. What were your thoughts, Giovanni?
You know what? This might come as a surprise. I have never seen Passion of the Christ. So
That's okay.
I
You,
know, I know.
I won't spoil what happens. It's all right.
Please don't.
I will.
Please,
Jesus
I don't.
dies.
What are you doing? What? I take
I'm
back
the
all-
villain. I ruin things.
take everything back.
You know the worst part? The worst part? He comes back.
Like Michael Myers, but so much nicer.
I don't
So much nicer. Sorry, but I'm not.
Sorry.
not seen it, but it is on my watch list.
Yeah, like Luke said, it's just tunnel vision into suffering basically for 2 hours, and that's the point, I guess, to make you really relate to the pain. But yeah, I'd like to close out. I mean, we have Holy Week coming up, Easter. Obviously, you haven't, like Mel Gibson, you haven't tackled the resurrection yet either in your project. But if you would recommend anything, what specific episode or season of The Chosen do you think would be a meaningful watch next week? Or if you want to pick any other title, Giovanni?
Gosh, I mean, if you haven't seen the show yet, I mean, I would definitely start with. I think episode 1 kind of just hits you in your heartstrings. Honestly, I think it's a beautiful start to the series, and it's kind of like a welcome, and it's a little bit lighter than some of these past couple of seasons we had. The first season, I always kind of relate to it as like you're getting the band together, and it's getting your group of buds together, and kind of season 2 kind of goes through that trend as well. But honestly, and if you're a fan of the show, I think it just gets better with each and every season. Especially if you haven't seen season 4 yet. I know they're doing an extended release in theaters right now, and it's hands down our most emotional season yet. It was probably our most emotional to film as well for a variety of reasons. But these are characters that you can really connect to and see yourself in. And I would definitely recommend it. It's on Netflix and Amazon Prime right now too.
Nice. And Luke, any specific episode, or do you kind of agree, or any other title?
Oh yeah, I'd really recommend the movie Hop, starring Russell Brand as the Easter Bunny. Great Easter movie. Actually, Russell Brand, Jonathan Rumi, they're actually pretty good friends. So I keep it in the family. Give a good shout out. Really great. But also, yeah, no, I guess Giovanni was right. Season 1 is kind of my personal favorite too. It's not a bad place to start. Really great writing, incredible like pilot episode that grabs you like immediately and then builds you up with the rest of the story. It's a pretty good place to start. So I'd probably recommend that too. But yes, straight from Hop, watch Hop, and then go.
Together? Can you go see Hop with me this weekend?
I
Can
would
we go
love to see Hop with you this weekend. I
Matt, you're
wouldn't
invited.
miss it.
Oh, thank you. I'll bring my copy of Passion of the Christ for you, Giv. It'll be
Great. We'll make it a double
weird
feature.
Double
The two
feature.
sides,
Oh.
the two sides of Easter.
I'm not sure which one will be more disturbing, Hop or Passion of the Christ.
No, definitely Hop.
Well, thank you both so much for discussing this. I'll let you go. I can't wait for people to see the fourth season. And yeah, I wish it the best.
Thank you so
Thanks so
much.
much.